A transmissão está começando. Todos os participantes estão no modo somente escuta.
All right, Victor, you're still muted.
Okay.
There we go. I hear you.
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, good. Are we live?
So we're live now. Take it away.
Okay, thank you, Jim. So, good afternoon. We are speaking live directly from Brazil. I'm speaking from South Brazil, and we are here today to talk about Delphi at the university. The idea is to give you guys some insights on how students and teachers can benefit on the use of Delphi and C++ Builder at their universities. Okay, especially speaking about engineering courses and tech-related courses. So, my name is Victor Fernandez. For those who don't know me, most of my friends call me Vic. And I love Delphi since 1998. This one thing I heard from one friend in Brazil, which he wrote, and ever since I always write the same thing, so I don't use it. I love it. Okay. I am Embarcadeira MVP since the very beginning of the project in 2012, I think. And I'm CTO at my own company, TKS Software. I have a master's degree in medicine neuroscience, and my background is from electrical engineering. So where this presentation comes from, mostly of it comes from the work I do using Delphi in the industry, and also the fact that I'm a former university professor, and I used to teach in the mechatronics, electronic, and mechanical engineering courses from 2006 to 2015. Okay, so we will go a little bit around this topic, and you will understand how all these things come together. That's the idea, and at the end, we are open for questions. Just a second, trying to go to the next slide. Not working. Not sure what's happening.
Well, you get that working. I will plug, we do have a Delphi education panel on Thursday. So if you didn't get your question answered today, make sure you join us for that. Victor will be there for that as well.
Yes, of course. Just a second, because I don't know what happens. It simply is not the thing of going live. Okay, here we go. Looks like it's changing the slides, but not updating the screen or something like that.
Oh, I've seen that before. Sometimes if you run it in, tell PowerPoint to running. Oh, there you go. It's working now. Okay.
No, the same.
It's working now. It looks fine to me. Is it not updating on
So
your screen?
it is changing for you, but not changing for me then.
If you tell PowerPoint to run in kiosk mode, then it will behave properly.
Just a second. It is some way how I have a lag. It changes, but takes time for me. Just a second. I will do it this way. So if it's not a problem for you guys, we'll do it this way.
So there's a question here from Ewan that I can try and answer. It says the challenge in university for Delphi is to convince the university that Delphi is still being developed actively.
Yes, yes, and this is a little bit of what we are going through today. So here we go. This way I can do it fine if it's okay for you guys. So this is how we work.
You can hide your top bar to make that slide a little bigger. Just double click on the very top.
Okay. Because this is not. Okay. Here we go.
There you go. Yep.
Better now?
Yes. Yep, that's good.
Okay, fantastic. So this is how we use Delphi at our company. So we mostly do, in fact, we focus on industrial automation and factory floor integration and systems. So these are some companies we do work here in Brazil. We work all over Brazil. And actually nowadays I'm really far from home. I'm working on a company like the one on the right, the top right corner here. Not this one, but they do work with the same thing. Okay, so we do Delphi and we automate everything on them with Delphi. So if you're actually studying at the university, this is what we do with Delphi nowadays. Today we are talking about higher education teaching. I have a background, a very strong background in this thing, and my focus was always related on technology-related courses. So today we are actually going through a curriculum matrix to analyze and provide some simple examples on how some academic disciplines can benefit on Delphi and C++ Builder modern features. Okay, so the idea is that I catch this one very big and important institution in my hometown, and I actually went through some of their curriculum matrix in order to present this in the Embarcadero Conference Brazil, which happened a couple of months ago. And to show the people there, we have like 600 people every year there, to show how we can benefit on that. So if you go to this institution website, you can find their matrix for the 5 years of electrical engineering course. And I'm sorry, this one, of course, is in Brazilian Portuguese. And you will see that in the first semester, we will find the discipline of programming logic. So you have here this little box in red on the left bottom side. And this goes not only in an electrical engineering course, but also in control and automation. You will find the discipline of introduction of programming introduction, okay? And we will also find it in computation engineering. So this is very common to happen. I mean, no matter which university you're going to as a professor or as a student, you will most probably be facing this discipline in the first semester, okay? So as a teacher, of course, you have the challenge to engage your students with something interesting, because sometimes, in my case, for example, I was a 17-year-old electrical engineering student in my first semester. So I go there, I'm eager to see something nice, something modern, something that actually can change my way of seeing the world. Okay, so this is the challenge that we face, and that, I mean, my teachers were supposed to face, I don't know, 20 years ago when I studied electrical engineering. If we keep going through the matrix, we will see that they actually have another engineering, which is automotive engineering, and this is the only case where they put this discipline in the fourth semester. Okay, otherwise we're always talking about first semester, maybe second semester disciplines. And it would be a nice exercise for you guys that are watching this live all over the world, to check on the institutions that you have close to you, or where you have friends or colleagues, or where you're teaching, in which semester actually you guys are teaching logics to your students. And actually I propose to you guys to do this very same exercise we're doing. So the idea is to question, what do we want? Okay, so actually we want to teach engineering, we want to teach the students to program, and actually we want to empower and train our students using our modern and very powerful tools. This is what we were supposed to be doing nowadays, 20 years after I go out of the university. Okay, so we had this challenge. My teachers had this challenge 20 years ago, and I have this very same challenge nowadays. So how do we want to do that? The thing here is that we want to do that with Delphi and C++ Builder. Okay, so when we go into engineering courses, it's very common to have very strong resistance from the professors in order to use Delphi, and it's much easier to enter if we enter talking about C++, mainly because all the embedded devices, they work with C. So it's much easier to teach C++ to the students in the very beginning, and then in the disciplines like microcontrollers that they will be facing in the semester number 7 or 8 of the course, they already know C, so it's much easier. So if you have to, let's say, offer C++ or Embarcadero solutions at the university you're teaching at, try to go, if Delphi is a problem, try to go the other way through C++ and it will be much easier. Okay? So what happens when we check on the usual program content of these disciplines of introduction to programming logic, it will always look like the same. We have at first to teach algorithms to the students, and we have like 6 months for that. And we have to teach them how to program. Many students, they come with some background from schools. Each day, it is more common for the students to arrive with some programming logic background, but not always. Okay, we have to understand that many students will arrive not knowing how what a variable is or how to do a simple if-else. Okay, and this being said, it means that we have to go through all the basic elements: constants, variables, relational, and logical operators, all the basics. And then we evolve to flow control structures, data input and output, vectors, recursion, and not always it is possible to actually get into object orientation. So this discipline, depending on the university, depending on the time you have to teach, depending on the flow of the students, maybe you will not be able to arrive in object orientation. Some universities actually also put a second discipline related to programming logic with some different names sometimes, just for you to go through object orientation and some more advanced programming skills for the students. But this also depends on the kind of course we are dealing with. If we are talking about computational engineering, of course, they have a higher load for programming, but maybe in automotive engineering, that's not the focus, and you will not have this second opportunity to go through object orientation. So sometimes you have to squeeze everything together and go all the way through. And we must admit that going from zero to programming something and actually understanding object orientation is a lot for a short period of time. The point is, where I want to arrive is that after all that, our students, they face a screen like that. Most of the universities will teach all that starting from prompt commands and some kind of C or Java or whatever environment that will output this kind of interface to our students. So in an interface like that, he's just asking to do some basic calculation, and the student is supposed to type some number, and the output is shown in this black MS-DOS screen. Okay, so what happens is that although this discipline is very common to almost all courses in the area of technology, the first contact that our students are having with logic, algorithm, and programming languages are contacts based on a 30, 40 years technology. So the students arrive at my classroom with mobiles on their hands, with tablets, with iPads, with very powerful computers, and at the end, you give them at age 17, 16, 18, this is what we give them. So it is not uncommon to have universities working like that. And this is not motivating our students. And most of them are using some free tools like Dev C++, they're using like Java, just to teach this basic. and produce applications like this one on the right, where I have here a hello world. I mean, it should not be possible to do that to our students nowadays. So it is important to establish basic concepts and teach these basic concepts. But the question that the teachers out there and the students out there are supposed to do nowadays is that, are we doing this in the best way possible? So why not to enjoy the RAD features? That's the point. Why insist in command prompts? There's no logic to do this nowadays. So why not to use a modern multi-platform language that can output to Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android with a single code? That's the question that we should be out there shouting in each university in the world. So if you're a teacher, go to your friends, go to your colleagues, go to the students and make them make these questions to themselves, and then to the teachers out there, and then to the universities out there. And people must at some point start to change. I was always making this question ever since I started as a student, and ever since I started as an MVP, I was always questioning, including in Embarcadero, Brazil, about that, because in the past we used not to have a free tool, a free Delphi version for tryouts. So how students were supposed to do that? And then, okay, now we have a free tool, but we must also work in getting close to the university. I'm always surprised on how old is the average of the people in Embarcadero events around the world. So, I mean, they're not supposed to be so old. We are supposed to be there engaging new people, engaging the students, engaging the young guys. These are the ones that are going to make Delphi survive and last. So doing that is our compromise, and it's what we are supposed to be, what we can do to help the tool and the company. So I asked many times myself, why not? So why not use it? Why the teachers out there are not using? It's just because it's free. It's just because I have C++ for free or Java for free. And sometimes I don't think that's the problem. I've been through many disciplines teaching basic programming skills to students, and what I could see from some of my colleagues is that, okay, they want to teach the basics, algorithms and programming logic and all these basic elements, but they don't want to explain object orientation before the students actually understand the basics. So what do? They deliver just the basics with some very poor output with something like this. And they say, you see, to do this, you don't need anything. So I don't have to explain to you how a button gets into the user interface. I don't have to explain that this inherences from another object. I don't have to explain you a lot of things that are basic object orientation concepts. So to do that, I deliver this to my students. I have always been against that. I'm the one saying, okay, let's go into some abstraction. I don't have to explain you that. Just accept that a button comes into the screen and I can put this thing on the screen, and then I can go through all the other elements. For example, I can go through all the if, do, while, for, go to, all the other elements I have to teach my student. I can teach them, but not saying how this button got here. And for that, I can propose some simple application, for example. So this is one application I would like to propose you guys, one that was proposed once and I used to actually do with my students too. So this is a very common question you would face in school, in secondary school even. Let's just read it a bit. The population of a city is 3 times the population of a city X, sorry, is 3 times the population of a city Y. If we add the population of the two cities, we will have a total of 200,000 inhabitants. What is the population of the city X? So this is a very basic algebra question that we would face in some exam, very basic exam. And if we remember how to do that, we can actually write two equations. So I have here one equation that says that X equals 3 times Y. And another equation that says that X plus Y equals 200,000. So do you guys remember how we solve that? We used to solve that. So first of all, if you go into the university, you start to go into some calculus disciplines, for example, from the very first semester even. So you have calculus in the first, second, third, and fourth semesters. And in these disciplines, you actually work, for example, with linear equation systems. And this is a linear equation system. We learn how to solve it via algebra, and we also learn how to solve it via numerical applications. And one of the numerical applications we learn how to solve is through Gauss method. So at this point, the student does not know the Gauss method, but I can simply present it to them, abstracting the math behind it, just presenting the algorithm and saying, this is how it works. Let us try to write this. So I'm abstracting the object orientation, I'm abstracting the math, but proposing the student actually to write and understand this and to get into a solution. Or I can even present the solution done, ready, and say, let us study how this thing works. So here's something that I'm even proposing to you, ready, abstract how this code was done. Let us understand the parts. So there are many ways to teach in this abstraction concept and form. Okay, so in this way, for example, I can rewrite this equation system and represent it in a matrix. So before I used to have this equation, I can just say that I bring 3x to the other side, so it's minus 3x, so I have 1x minus 3x equals 0, and 1x plus 1y equals 200,000. If I do this, I can now represent this in a matrix. Look, 1, 1, minus 3, 0, 1, 1, I have here 200,000. So this is a very simple application that when I click solve, I have the solution here presented in the right. And if I actually solve this through algebra, I don't know if you guys remember, but very simple, no? If x equals 3y, I can simply change it here and I have the value for y. Then now that I know that y is 50,000, I can actually put it in the first equation and I have the value for x. And here's the solution in algebra, but I can actually implement it. If I go through the algorithm of this thing, this little application has almost everything I have to teach to my student in this discipline of the first semester. I can teach my student how to do data entry. I can teach my student how to perform tests. I can teach my student how to initialize variables and values. I can teach my student how to perform actually the mathematical part which is related to order, elimination, and replacement. And I can teach my students to perform data output. So instead of doing scanfs and printfs to do data entry and outputs, I can actually use components, visual components, and abstract a little of the scanf and printf thing, no? And work with something much more modern that I can actually compile for Windows or compile to Mac and to Android. This very simple application would work, no problem. So if we go through the source code of this application, and you guys there that do not have that Delphi installed, you can download and install it for free, and you will be able to download the source code of this application. During this week, I will post it on my blog. you will see that there's nothing special in this application other than ifs and else's and fors and loops. Just that. Nothing more than that. And we are working with matrix. Okay. And even it's very common to find some, I would say, a little stupid challenges online where they make questions like that. It's exactly the same. This is a linear system with 3 equations and 3 variables: green dragon, red dragon, and purple dragon. Okay. This I will actually post on my YouTube channel. You can go there later this week and check on it. And it would be very nice to have you guys subscribed in my YouTube channel too. I welcome you guys to actually try to download the code and solve this solution and send it to me, and I will be very glad to post it on my YouTube channel too. Okay, send it the links to me via email. Very nice. So you guys are now my students. I used to do challenges like this with my students. So this is actually Delphi applied in the first application we saw, applied to teach calculus, applied to teach logic, applied to put and getting close together both calculus and logic. So we are not just teaching something that is not connected to something other that the students see. We are actually connecting everything together. So I always like this thing. And for many years, I was teaching programming, but I was always also teaching digital electronics, which actually can be a discipline where in the electric engineering course, we can simply not talk about software in this discipline. But I always thought that made no sense not to talk about software. So I was always also using Delphi to teach digital electronics. So when I had to teach, for example, numerical basis for my students, and they had to understand the different bases and how they were related. If you are like a standard professor of this discipline, you're like teaching zeros and ones and logic and saying that you have a bit or a byte, and you're just attaching to this. But if you want to put things together, you start to open your programming language help file, and you start to show your students that actually each variable comes from the numerical basis that you're studying. That, for example, if we are actually creating a program that will handle temperature, I don't need an integer value. I should work with a short int because there is no temperature. For example, if it's Celsius that we work in Brazil, there's no temperature higher than 127. So this is good enough. If you're using a strong computer, makes no difference if we're using integer or short int. But if we're using a microcontroller, it will make all difference. And since we are teaching engineering students at a very basic level, we should give them the whole scenario. So I used to do that even to show that all those bases, when we were converting bases, and we had to lose a lot of time showing how the students to convert in binary to decimal to hexadecimal and so on. We are always doing this math here on the left, and this is very, very boring to these students. And they always question, why do I do that? And then you go, for example, to color patterns. All the color patterns, if you check here, the notation in HTML and whatever color application you're using, they are always shown in hexadecimal. So for the student, the things starts to make sense. And then you present the ask table and you say, you see, this is the ask table that you are learning in, I don't know which discipline of programming. Now you have to have the teachers very well integrated. You have to understand the whole scenario. And this you will learn, I don't know, in the semester number 4. So you will learn how to use this table. You see that this table actually works with decimal, hexadecimal, octal, and you have to understand how to convert in between that. And why is that needed? Because then when you go to the discipline that you will learn how to communicate with equipment, where you will learn, for example, automation, PLCs, and so on, all the data that will be transferred in between your PLC, in between your scale, whatever, will come in ASCII. when it's transmitted, for example, in a, I don't know, RS485 or RS232 communication. So it is very common to have that. And when you have that, the protocol actually have many bytes that you will have to learn how to break. So presenting this to the student and showing code to them can be very effective to make them understand and actually get in love with your discipline in the very beginning and during all the engineering courses. And this can be easily done using Delphi. So all these applications I'm showing you here were done with Delphi. Actually, this scale application I did in 2004, and I published this article in 2005, and it has more than 24,000 views in this blog in Brazil. So this is something I used to do with my students since I started in year 2006, as I told you guys. I started to teach. So actually, during the period I was teaching, we were doing and using Delphi for much more. So we were actually controlling step motors. So we had we were able actually to control it via Delphi applications. You see here, it's a Delphi 7 application. So very old stuff. And if you guys later check on the links I provide here, you will see that actually for each one I posted some videos that will show some very nice applications. So you see here this motor going around left and right. So we had Delphi applications running, and we were building robots and empowering students to do all that with Delphi and C++ build. Okay, so you see all this is done with Delphi. So you will be able to check on the links later and go through all this material. So another thing that we have to teach in digital electronics, we have to teach logic gates. So if we are teaching to engineering students, most of the times we are just worried about the logic, but I was always asking my students to implement something either in Delphi, C++ Builder, or whatever language they want, but that I could validate the logic and actually showing the students that what we were learning that actually were circuits and logic that we can teach just with zeros and ones, true or falses, at the end can be presented in whatever form we are filling online, for example. When we have to fill name and address and they are a field that we must fill, actually we have an AND logic. The form will only be validated if the name field and the address field is filled. If it's not filled, we will not be able to send the form. So this is actually logic gates that we learn in electronics. So you see how the behavior is. So the student maybe cannot see that this bunch of zeros and ones that we are teaching here in circuits like that on the top right, maybe he cannot see that this top right circuit actually ends up as maybe a simple software form in his mobile. So connecting these dots is very important, and we can actually use Delphi and C++ Builder to help the students do very simple applications like this one in the left, that was also done with Delphi 7, and to make them understand. More complex applications can also be made. This is very interesting application for mapping exponential electric fields. This is something we do in labs when we are studying electrical engineering. And let me show you guys. Let's see if I can run it here. So this is an example. So I can say how big is the area I want to cover, and I can say how is the actual electric tension in volts distributed in each phase here, and the application calculates the areas that have the very same potential in terms of tension. This is something we study in electrical engineering that can be applied to magnetic fields that can be applied to light distribution. You understand how, for example, light goes out of a lamp, if it's a circular lamp or if it is a linear lamp and stuff like that. So we can actually simulate, and this one was a simulation using Delphi for a very, very strong and hard discipline in electrical engineering course. This discipline actually is one of the hardest ones every student face. And this one thing I learned, if you're a student now, I'm talking to you guys out there, is that I was most of the time not interested in some discipline. So I was not actually interested in distribution of electric fields like that, if it was just studying the theory. But if I could actually implement a software and make a software run this calculus and show me these lines live, this was very interesting to me. So most of the times the teachers were not asking for this, and I was simply doing it by myself just because I can study this thing on the left if I do this thing on the right. So this is also another way to get involved with the thing. Okay, so if we go on, we arrived to 2011. In 2011, I was presenting some computer vision interaction with Kinetic. At the time, I was working with a fellow colleague from UK, and this was actually my entrance passport to as an MVP, because the year after I was invited to integrate the team. And here you also find a nice video showing this and many other applications in my YouTube channel showing Kinect integrated with Delphi. But this is actually computer vision and interaction. We studied that in many disciplines in technology-related courses. 2012, I actually had almost to fight in Embarcadero, Brazil to demonstrate Delphi integrated with Arduino. At that time, all the events were focusing mostly in solutions inside the computer, and I wanted to use Delphi or C++ Builder to go outside the computer. So it was the first year that Embarcadero actually had some version able to compile to iOS, and I demonstrated how from my iPhone I could light up a lamp. And I did this live in the Embarcadero Conference Brazil event. Most probably for the first time in the world somebody did it. The year after, some years after 2015 and 2016, I was always demonstrating similar applications, and actually this application here on the right is an intra-web application tracking a vehicle using Arduino, using a GPS integrated to Arduino, and using also a GPRS board and a SIM card board. Everything connected, sending data to a server, which was running a back-end application developed with Delphi and a front-end application developed with Delphi and IntraWeb. So these are some of the things we have been working on and demonstrating year after year during Embarcadero Conference events. And actually, if we go back to the university, we see that this is actually microcontrollers. Okay. At the time when I wanted to present this in 2012 at the Embarcadero Conference Brazil, I actually faced some resistance because the guys were like, okay, but then you have to show some C code for the guys, and the C code is not C++ code, and it's C code for Arduino, which is not the same, and this is not the focus. And I said, look, the focus must be integration. So of course I had to handle some other technologies. And nowadays it's so clear and so nice to see that this is actually going everywhere in the world. And actually in 2016, I was invited to IT DelphiCon to demonstrate this very same presentation, lighting up a lamp, and it was a fantastic experience. Okay. Microcontrollers is a very advanced discipline in engineering courses where usually it is in semester number 7, 8, or 9, depending on the institution and depending on the course. But I used to teach this thing too. I teach mostly with PIC, with Arduino and with 8051 microcontrollers. So I like the thing that we can integrate with embedded C or embedded assembler. I used to teach with assembler too. So in 2017, I come back to Embarcadero conference, putting together the two things, computer vision and microcontrollers. So now I need to have a computer actually reading stuff like these images here on the bottom left. So we have blue circles, yellow circles, green circles, red circles. And on the right, we see how this Delphi 7 application is actually processing this information coming from the camera and sending information through a Wi-Fi network or ZigBee network to mobile robots in order to play soccer in an autonomous way. So this actually puts together many concepts that we have in the university that we can actually work together both with Delphi and C++. So those are all ideas that you teachers out there can empower yourselves and actually bring these technologies into your courses and actually making the thing more fun to your students and actually empowering them to then work with whatever. So when I say work with whatever, this is another thing. In 2018, here I am demonstrating the solution that we are integrating Delphi application shown here in this monitor with this industrial automation equipment that we actually sell for companies like Scania, Volkswagen in Brazil, and we sell all over the world because this is an Italian manipulator that we represent in Brazil, my company represents in Brazil, and we integrate it with Delphi. And this integration is done via Modbus communication, which is actually one of the protocols that we study in the university when we are studying disciplines of industrial networks and protocols. So if we use Delphi and C++ Builder in the very beginning, in the very first semester, we empower them with much more than a simply hello world with Dev C++ and an output in a DOS console screen. If we empower the students with Delphi and C++ Builder in the first semester, what I'm saying is that when they arrive in disciplines like industrial networks and protocols and automation or whatever you call these disciplines in your institution, they will be able to use this solution in a very easy way to integrate with whatever thing you want. Because then we have components that they can plug to Delphi and then integrate with the solutions. And this was, I showed this thing in 2018 in Embarcadero Conference, Brazil. So as you can see, I'm always the one in Brazil bringing stuff that goes beyond with Delphi because at the end, I am an engineer. I have this engineering soul. So I like to put Delphi together with these things. That's the point. And this all comes together in my career when in 2014 I had this project that made me do this master's degree in medicine. Actually, I was not addressed to do this. There was a friend of mine which was an engineer and doctor. So he graduated in both at the university, and he was the one supposed to do this master's degree. We had the money. We had $100,000 non-refundable public money put into our startup to develop this project. But then he got an invitation to a much better master degree program in Northeast Brazil, the best one in Brazil, with which is partnered with Miguel Nicolelli. Some of you guys may have heard about his name. So he got this opportunity, and we had everything at our hands. We had the project, we had the money, we had everything, but we needed to validate the solution inside a medicine course. So I went there. I was the only engineer in between 50 doctors, and actually at the end we got the solution ready. So it's a hardware that has a battery, a micro SD, a processing unit running a embedded firmware developing C, a sound unit, and 2 accelerometers. And this thing puts together a lot of technology. So I put here the references if you want to check. But the point is that everything here outputs data to a Delphi plus Firebird application. So at the end, our solution, which was a equipment for the medical field, which was validated in a master's degree in a very accredited university in Brazil, outputted something with Delphi. So there was no other option. That was the best option, actually. Even because then we can have this very same application that we did in Delphi in 2014, we did in Delphi Windows Desktop. Nowadays, I can upload it and update it for my mobile, for example. So we did all the tests. We compared with some other gold references. We did all the statistics. It is all validated and published. We actually requested a patent out of it. And the result is an equipment that actually works, and it was delivered in 4 copies to the university to perform tests in what we call animanomaly. So it is to perform tests in humans. Doctors, they like to speak in Latin and to do things complicated. So to test in humans. So we did all the tests in the lab, and now we actually are able to perform tests in humans. So we 3D printed the boxes, and we have everything set up. And at the end, our solution, we're able to track Parkinson's disease tremors during the day. So we had the tremor during the day in the 2 or 3 accelerometers, depending on the configuration, that we could see how this tremor was going in the patients. So this is very important information for the doctors, because even nowadays, 6 years, 8 years after we started the project, even nowadays, doctors, they still give medication based not on numbers. So they give medication to patient, and they don't actually know how much actually the tremor is going down. They have to believe in interview with the patient and so on. And with solutions like that, we can actually track both in time or in frequency. So we have here Fourier transformations done. So this is also another concept from math that we learned in calculus and other disciplines in engineering. So we can also track in the frequency environment all the tremors that the patient has. And this is all done with Delphi. And at the end, most probably you guys know this kind of outputs, no? We have forms doing the output to print, for the doctors to sign, and so on. So the idea here was just to show actually that we can actually do something very basic from the very start for the students. And but we also have a very powerful tool on our hands that can put together both engineering and medicine applications in order to perform master degrees or doctorate degrees or whatever. So just go up there, go to your university where you studied, go to the university where you teach, or go to the university where you're studying, and start making questions. Start to ask, why not to use Delphi and C++ Builder in order to empower your future solutions and your knowledge. So this is me, Victor Fernandez, directly from Brazil. Very happy to have you guys here and open for questions. Thank you.
Hey, fantastic. Thank you, Victor. Very interesting to see some of the great things you're doing with Delphi. Your comment, wonderful and inspirational talk so far. So going through some of the questions here. If you do have questions for Victory, you can put them in the question panel. We also, as I mentioned, do have the Delphi education panel on Thursday. So you did link to some code. Is that available if they go to the blog link there? Is that the best place to find the code and stuff you provided?
Yes, I will be posting this code during today and tomorrow. You should be posting the code and the solution for the video until the end of the week.
Okay. And will your slides be available there as well?
Yes, I'm posting all the content.
Okay. Can you put the link there to your blog in the chat window so that people can click on it?
Of course.
There were a few licensing specific questions that came in. So I will, if you go to learndelphi.org, you can find the place to contact about academic licenses. You can also, oh, that went to only organizers. Victor, you need to change into entire audience. Otherwise, you can talk to the resellers in your area. It also is a possibility to find out more. So if you go to here, I'll probably read the link here. There was a question about resellers in Africa. So the way Embarcadero is set up is we have partners all around the world that handle different regions. So if you go to that link I just put there, the partners resellers site, and then go select your region or your country, you can find the resellers in your region that you can talk to. So they're more likely, they're more often able to help you with local things as far as licenses and stuff like that. But you can also reach out to us as well if you aren't able to, if you need additional help. But generally, it's a good place to start with them as well, especially if you're looking for local outreach to universities, for example. As exemplified by TMS with the release of its full Object Pascal development, is Embarcadero planning to fork its Rad Studio IDE into? So actually, this interesting question about a Rad Studio and Delphi in Visual Studio Code, more of a product management question, and actually came up a little bit this morning in the opening keynote, that we are looking at some cross-platform IDE options, but not anything specific or concrete at this point. The question here, Victory, about your experiences using Delphi and robotics, if you can talk more about that.
Okay. So actually, most of the first time we actually had to work with Delphi and robotics, let's say in an academic environment, we start to use the parallel output in order to run it, because we were able to run beat by beat outputs. And then nowadays, you can easily integrate with some microcontroller very easily, because you have to understand that when I started, there was no Arduino, for example. So no sheet concept that putting plates one on top of the other, making things much easier. Nowadays, I would recommend the ones out there that wants to start with that, just try to integrate Delphi with Arduino, so you can easily communicate and so on. I will actually put a link to a project that we did, that we actually used to we were able to abstract all the C code for Arduino in order for you to communicate with the hardware with whatever language, just through text commands that you could send via sockets, for example, or via RS-232 commands from a Delphi or whatever application. This way, if you only know Delphi, you can completely abstract the microcontroller side and actually still communicate them in order to start. Sometimes it's easier.
So there's a question here about the future direction of the language. The roadmap is actually officially posted now, the updated roadmap. So if you go check out the roadmap, you can find the product management plans for the future of Delphi there. A lot of people commenting that they appreciate your talk, very inspirational. So there's another question about finding a distributor in Africa. If you look for the EMEA region resellers, you can find some of them there.
Yes, interesting to see how other people is also saying that it is hard to convince our colleagues in the university. Yes, I know it is hard. That's the point. I mean, they are still teaching with some very old concepts and ideas, and That's our challenge. That's our challenge to show that we could be using something very modern in the very beginning and then having our students in very early age programming, for example, a mobile device. So why not use C++ Builder, for example? I mean, if you don't want Delphi or Pascal, if you don't like it, if you don't believe it, or if you think that we should teach C because the students will need C for microcontrollers, okay, so let's use let's use C++. No problem. So this is the way to go.
Yeah. Actually, Adam, if you could unmute yourself real quick. Adam is helping answer some of the questions here. He's just recently started as an intern here, and he took computer science and was trying to, it's like, kept asking, how do I do a Windows program? I want to do, something with the user interface. And they're like, oh, yeah, don't worry about that. He's not, he might be stepped away for a minute. Anyway, when we started working here as an intern, I was like, well, here, let's show you Delphi and C++ Builder. And in a few minutes, he's building GUI applications. We're deploying to phones and stuff. And he's like, this is amazing. Honestly, it's so much more fulfilling, I think, to be able to create something that you can see and that is a more complete application, and you're still accomplishing the same, educational aspect of it, but you're able to have something that is more interesting to use and seems like more of an application. So I agree. Great stuff. All right, I think so. We're close to the top of the hour. We do need to wrap up here. There was Jim Ferguson had some links to some cool videos and stuff he'd done as well. That's really cool. Actually, I was gonna send you an email, Jim, and ask for more information on that, but I can't find your question now. But we do need to wrap up. Thank you, Victory, for this
Thank you very much.
session, and we'll see everybody in the education panel on Thursday.
Thank you. See you on Thursday.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
O organizador saiu da reunião. Esta